yourself, Brother Amir. You're welcome to ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. So basically,
Alaikum assalam.
has been
Pardon?
doing it for a couple of years. Like, what if someone, like, he understands Islam, he understands the spiritual welfare, the benefits, and whatever, but hasn't gained anything in dunya and just feels burnt out? Like, he wants to leave the path, like, severely, because, like, you know, like let's say going in extremes, like not sleeping and like not eating as much, and like you gain some benefits, like better character and stuff, but like you just feel burnt out, like you haven't, like as a youth, you know what I mean, who did spiritual warfare, and like you're just burnt out now. You don't see any benefit. Like I heard there's ihram, like doing ihram, like basically there's like doing like basically just relying on Allah and like leading to Allah, but like just not seeing like that feeling of despair, like where you don't want to continue the path anymore, and it's like you worked so hard though, like really hard, but in the end, like you didn't really gain anything in a way. Like what do you find, like for Islam in general though, like as a Muslim too, like being burnt out?
Actually, one of the previous letters was answer to your situation. Let me see which one was it.
The Sufi one.
You know, the one that was saying, you know, why you are complaining or something like that. Yes, it's letter, the second one. The second one, you can find the recording. I don't know if you were there when we had the second one, but anyway, it's available, the recording. So, this was a letter he wrote to a sheikh. And he says that you complained, قد اشتكيت من سوء حالك وتفرق إخوانك وقلة أعوانك. And then he gives different possibilities of why he may feel this, and he tries to answer. It's very good if you can refer to letter too. So basically, if someone has been working hard, really seriously working hard on spirituality and has not get anywhere, first of all should make sure that what he did or she did was according to the Sunnah, according to Aql, according to the teachings of Ahlul Bayt and instructions of our ulama. Because sometimes people unnecessarily make life difficult for themselves and they think they must achieve something, but they have neglected some other things. This is number one. But if you really did everything properly, salat on time, nawafil, I don't know, tahajjud, helping poor people, being kind to people, being nice with your family, if you have really done all these things and you have not felt any breakthrough, you have to be persistent. You have to wait. Ayatollah Qadi Tabatabai Rahmatullah Alayh, after about 40 years of great spiritual struggle, the door was opened for him. Ali ibn Mahzyar, after 20 Hajj to see Imam al-Zaman, then the next year was able to see Imam al-Zaman. When he was almost becoming despaired. Akhun Mullah Hussein Ghuli Hamedani, who is the teacher of teacher Ayatollah Qadi Tabatabai, when he saw a bird is trying to take something from a dried piece of bread and tried tens of times so that can take something and then succeeded. Said, I should be also patient and persistent. So you should never give up. So don't pressurize yourself, don't overwhelm yourself so that your nafs rebels. But be also steadfast, not rushing and not waiting for quick openings. Actually, many ulama say that those who need more time to have a breakthrough, they may gain better results in the long term. If someone quickly, for example, can see barzakh, his eyes are open, etc., this is dangerous sometimes because they may not be prepared, and also maybe they are not going to go too far. But those that need like 40 years, like Ayatollah Qazi Tabatabai, 40 years of real struggle, for example, he was not speaking, except necessary, etc. Then they can have deeper experiences. Never we should be despaired. Never ever be despaired.
جزاكم الله خير شيخنا. Sister Anna, please feel free to interject and explain the question. I read it. When people come up with new reflections and ideas, there's no way to verify with anyone that this is true, because no one has come up with this before or because it's not popular yet. So how do we think, create, and remain truthful in this sense?
But these reflections can be checked. They can be checked against Quran, Sunnah, Aql. Even if they are new, we can check them. But sometimes when we check them, we realize they are correct. Sometimes we don't find problems with them. We say there is no problem in this, but we cannot say they are definitely true. But in any case, we need to check them. If you are not able to find any way to verify them, put them in a special place in your mind for further assessment. Don't accept them, don't reject them. فَذَرْهُ فِي بُقْعَةِ الْإِمْكَانِ, as Ibn Sina says. But we cannot we cannot accept anything and act upon it unless we can verify it.
When you are doing a good work, how do you judge your intention? Is it for Allah or you just want to look good in the eyes of people?
Yeah, that's a very good question. For example, there are different ways to test. If you do something and people don't know about it, but Allah knows, of course, do you feel bad? If people know, do you feel more encouraged? Or sometimes if people know, you do it. If people don't know, you don't do it. This is one way of testing our sincerity. If you know something is pleasing to Allah but people don't appreciate, will you do it, or you only do things that people appreciate? So these are things that we need to test. But sometimes after all checking and tests, and you think it is sincere, still you must give a little chance to this may not be sincere, because our nafs is very complicated. And sometimes from one aspect it seems sincere, but later you may discover that there were traces of insincerity there which were hidden. So it's very difficult, I personally always think that, who knows whether my actions are sincere or not, even those things that, you may think they are sincere, still you are not 100% sure. At least I am not 100% sure most of the time, or almost every time, because I say, nafs is so complicated. So we don't want to be hopeless, but we shouldn't also dismiss the chance. You remember I said that sometimes someone after 40 years realized that he was not sincere. He was always attending, for example, Salatul Jama'ah. He was always in the first row. And he was thinking it's sincere. But one day he was delayed, and then he was staying, in the back, rows, and he felt very unhappy. He felt very embarrassed, and then he examined his heart and realized that it's because people would think bad about him, he would always go for the first row. So maybe initially he was sincere, but little by little, then it was expectation of people, and he had to meet their expectations about himself and do like this. Or on the other hand, sometime after 40 years, you may realize you are sincere. Like Ayatollah Sheikh Muhammad Hussein Isfahani Gharavi Kompani, teacher of Ayatollah Khouy, Ayatollah Bahjat. He was coming from a very rich family. His father had, factory. I heard a factory of electricity of Najaf belonged to him. They were, of course, from Isfahan. But his father was very rich and had only this son or this child. But he was living very simple life. So one day when he became a great mujtahid and teacher, they saw him smiling. They asked him, why you are smiling? He said, I purchased some potatoes or onions, I think potatoes, and the bag was torn and they dropped. How much value has potato? It was not very expensive. But he said, although I am a mujtahid, I sat down and picked up all the potatoes and I didn't feel anything bad. And then I remembered that when I was a young talabi, I had very expensive rosary, tasbih, each seed valued a lot. And when my rosary was torn, I didn't sit to collect them. I said, it's not good to, in front of people, I do this. So, alhamdulillah, now I smile because I see I made a progress. When I was an unknown talabi, my ego was not letting me to collect these expensive seeds. Now I can even collect potatoes and don't feel anything bad. So sometimes it takes decades to realize whether you are sincere or you are not sincere. You have to always be careful. You have to always watch yourself. Don't dismiss quickly the chances of insincerity, but don't become also hopeless.
Sister Yasmin, you have a question. You are welcome to share.
Yes, assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna, and everyone. Thanks, Brother Mubarak.
Alaikum assalam.
I just had a question, Sheikhna, about giving to the community and participation, especially after some times when I'm sure many of us do different levels of involvements that can take up a lot of time. And as the commitments become more and more involved, the responsibilities also evolve and become much more intensive. In the spirit of wayfaring and self-development and I guess stepping back to give back at some point later on, we are always conflicted with that responsibility or sense of responsibility to continue because many think you should in the same positions, in the same commitment levels, or perhaps the resources in the community are limited and the numbers are few and so on. So when does it become a hujjah on us to partake in these responsibilities at the same level, and how can we evaluate ourselves and our soul in a self-check to know we're truly making changes and stepping back for the right reasons, or we're doing it more for personal gain? So I know it's a very, very loaded question because it's very contextual, but I just find it is very difficult to step back sometimes knowing the compromise, the limitations of our communities these days. But at the same time, being involved has taken a lot of time from a lot of personal and spiritual growth that can otherwise be attended to. And that's really, I think, a question that maybe applies to many of us on this call and perhaps outside.
We have to first examine the reason for accepting something or starting something. Why I undertook this task, why I took this role. If still the same reasons are there, but people don't appreciate or don't help, but still the same reasons that urged me to accept this are there, I should continue. But if I realized that no, those were not realistic. I thought there is a need, but there was no need. I thought I'm able to do this, but I am not qualified for it. Or something more important came. So those reasons changed. Then my response also would change. But if the reasons are there, nothing more important has come up, this was a real need, this was something that I could deliver, just I am, disheartened. No, we should continue then. If this is the case, you should continue. And inshallah, little by little, things improve. Community work is not something easy. Community work needs lots of patience. Shaitan is very much active in all levels, but especially when people want to establish unity. Shaitan doesn't want people to establish unity. People don't want people to work together for the sake of Allah. People should not work for Allah, but even if they want to work for Allah, okay, work your own way. Shaitan doesn't want you to work together. When you want to work for Allah, Shaitan creates problem. But if it is with group, creates many times problem, much more. Because our unity is great asset and achievement. Yeah. So please check the reasons for accepting and see if they are there. Continue. Put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But if something more important has come up, your calculation at the beginning was not correct, then that's different. And also, many times, we think that, for example, if I don't spend time here, I can, study more, or I can do more on my own spirituality. Sometimes it's true, but sometimes this is just imagination. Because when we stop this, then we see we are not doing anything else. Yeah? It's like, for example, someone will say, if I don't go now to the masjid, I can, for example, listen to the lecture online and save 2 hours going and coming and, meeting and talking. So I listen to the lecture and then I have 2 hours, I will study. But believe me, most of the time, maybe for 1 week, 2 weeks you do it. But if you don't go to masjid, you don't save time.
Yes. No, alhamdulillah. I mean, you really captured it well, and alhamdulillah, in terms of the unity, that's the biggest thing that we strive for, and then we'll continue to work on, alhamdulillah. It's more the shift in responsibilities that is making my question. But thank you so much.
Ahsantum. May Allah bless you, inshallah. Give you lots of barakah, inshallah.
Ajma'in, ya Rab. Ilahi amin.
Ahsantum.
One last maybe clarification from Sister Anna's question. Sister Anna, you are very welcome to clarify the points you would like.
Assalamu alaikum.
So, for example, if it's a discourse and you're actually asked to be creative, and it may remain and it may spread, but it's very clear that it's not said from the position of authority. And if you keep checking all the time, first of all, you cannot be creative like this because you're always checking back with someone. And second, you will have to bother other people all the time with questions. So is it acceptable, for example, to write or to say something that you just came up with? It might make sense, it might not make sense to others, and you're open to criticism. That it may not be true.
Yeah, so if I understood well, you mean that sometimes an idea comes to mind that in your assessment, based on your background, knowledge, experience, you don't find any problem with this. But you are not still sure, because maybe if it is raised to a scholar, would say that this is not acceptable, and maybe they say it's acceptable. So
and you're actually asked to bring those ideas.
Yes, and you're so it depends to whom you are going to mention this. If they are people of discerning, that's fine. If you are people of not necessarily discerning, but still they are careful, they listen to you and they keep it on a place in mind for further reflection, that is okay. But if they are people who are going to accept from you, then you have here responsibility of making sure that you give them something which is checked. So it's like, for example, sometimes there are people who are cooking and they are very experienced. You say, I was in the market, for example, and I purchased these things. You put it there, whoever wants, they can benefit. But sometimes you cook something and give to people and they're going to eat. It's not that they're going to take it as a raw material, they're going to use it. Then it's your responsibility to make sure that either you check it first or keep telling them, this is just an idea coming to my mind. I am not saying 100% is the case. I'm just saying as something to stimulate thinking, to motivate thinking, raising a question, raising an issue. In this case,
what if the project itself says that? I mean, they have it printed out that we don't.
And you think that people understand this, yeah? The people who are in that project?
The people are general public, but I'm thinking, should we be responsible for people who, let's say, base their religious views on an internet article?
I think you have good, mashallah, grasp of Islamic principles, and if you don't see any problem, then you can say just an idea. Tell them this is an idea. I'm not saying this is Islamic, just as an idea that my knowledge of Islam, my experiences has led me to this idea, but I'm just sharing as a food for thought.
Or maybe can I just write a disclaimer for every article?
Yeah, you can say this is my personal ideas. You shouldn't be too much worried, but at the same time you have to be careful.
Okay, thank you.
May Allah bless you. I several times maybe mentioned this, that in different places, you know, that the late Allama Muhammad Taghi Jafari said something, it remained in my mind, that a person who is a good scholar, is a good thinker, if he himself or she is not sure, should say that this is something that has come to my mind, still I am working on it. Of course, on member, this is not the thing, you know, we do it, because on member we have to say something which we are sure. But in my classes, many times I share this, even in KLC, you know, with brothers in Qom. I say that this is an idea in my mind, I am thinking about it. I am trying to see whether there's evidence for it, against it. But normally when I am not sure, I say I'm not sure. Because even after, you know, many years of study, sometimes something new comes, idea comes, and you need to think about it, you need to digest it. But if you keep it to yourself, don't discuss it with your circle, with your friends, with your peers, then there's a chance that you may become one-sided. So it's good to raise it, but not for general public, but for people of, you know, your students or your peers, your teachers, in an academic, scholarly gathering.
Alhamdulillah, we had such an extended, mashallah, Q&A session.
Allah
bless you.
Thanks for the questions.
Alhamdulillah. Mindful of your time, Shaykhana. Inshallah, we have 15 participants.